You speak it, and it must appear. Your life does not respond to effort. It does not respond to wishing. It does not respond to how hard you try or how much you deserve. Your life responds to one thing, and one thing only, your spoken word. Everything you see around you, everything you feel stuck inside of, every limit you think is real, was created because at some point you said it. You described it. You agreed with it. And the law said, so be it. You do not live inside your emotions. You live inside your declarations. And the reason most people are surrounded by chaos, confusion, and lack is not because of punishment, but because of untrained speech. Because they have used the tongue that was given to create, to curse. Because they have spoken as victims of their surroundings instead of as commanders of divine law. Your declaration is the blueprint. Your words are the mold. And substance, invisible but exact, must fill it. This is not a metaphor. This is not poetic encouragement. This is spiritual law. It is the first law of wealth, and it is the only law that cannot be skipped. You cannot ask for wealth while describing lack. You cannot long for supply while affirming its absence. You cannot expect change while declaring the permanence of your current condition. The law does not fulfill desire. It fulfills direction, and direction is given through voice. Let me speak plainly. When you say nothing is working, the law says correct and multiplies the appearance of resistance. When you say it's hard right now, the law says as you wish and makes it harder. When you say I never have enough, you seal your field with insufficiency and you call it your truth. But when you say I am richly supplied, the entire field shifts. The substance begins to respond. Invisible channels open, not because you're emotional, not because you're shouting, but because you spoke, and what you speak in full spiritual agreement, you must see. This is the law of creative declaration. I speak and it appears. I command and the unseen obeys. I declare and the form must follow. The first act of divine creation was speech, not planning, not hoping, not working, speech. Let there be light, and there was, not because of effort, but because of alignment between word and law. If you are made in the image of the Creator, then your greatest power is not in your effort, but in your utterance. Your life is not built by hands, it is built by voice. So I ask you, what have you been speaking? What phrases have become ritual to your subconscious? What declarations are being enforced without your awareness? Because you do not need to speak with belief for it to be installed. You only need to speak with rhythm. And many of you have been rhythmically declaring delay. You've been describing your fears with more certainty than you declare your desires. And spiritual law, being mechanical and exact, fulfills what is repeated, not what is hoped for. It does not care whether your tone is sarcastic, anxious, or joking. It responds to vibration, not vocabulary. And vibration is encoded in rhythm. Most people think the tongue is harmless. They speak idle phrases like, I can't afford that, or it's just not happening, or I'm always struggling, and then wonder why the energy around them feels closed, blocked, or heavy. But the law never sleeps. The law never forgets. It records every word, every sigh, every complaint, every realistic phrase spoken in fear, and it fulfills it with divine accuracy. Because the law was never created to discern what you meant. It was created to obey what you said. This is why the mouth must be disciplined. This is why your declarations cannot be emotional reactions, but spiritual instructions. Your mouth is not a tool for processing pain. It is the instrument of divine formation. And if you continue using your voice to narrate circumstances instead of declare correction, you will keep building the same walls you are trying to escape from. Let me remind you, you are not here to describe your life. You are here to declare it. You are not here to report what's missing. You are here to command what must appear. You are not here to repeat what is. You are here to speak what must be. The law listens to tone, it listens to conviction, it listens to rhythm, and when those three align under truth, it obeys, always. So you must begin now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. The law does not wait for your comfort, the law waits for your voice. You must declare wealth before you see $1. You must declare supply before the door opens. You must speak increase while standing inside what looks like decrease. That is not delusion. That is dominion. Say it now. I speak wealth, and wealth obeys. Say it again. I do not describe conditions, I command them. Say it again. I do not hope for abundance, I release it by word. These are not affirmations. These are instruments. They are seed commands planted into the invisible soil of the field. And if spoken in rhythm, they cannot be ignored. And yes, at first it may feel awkward. Your body may flinch, your old identity may resist, but that is proof you're breaking the cycle. That is proof the old programming is being disrupted. And that is why you must continue. The law will not fulfill what you only whisper once. It fulfills what you hammer with decree. Begin each morning with a declaration that feels bigger than your current reality. Do not match your words to your wallet. Match them to the law. Declare the end from the beginning. Declare what must appear, not based on emotion, not based on visibility, but based on divine instruction. Speak to your bank account. Speak to your bills. Speak to the conditions, not as one describing, but as one commanding. Because when you speak from truth, not desperation, not logic, but truth, the entire field rearranges. Doors you never saw begin to open. Delays dissolve. Supply finds you without chase. Not because of hustle, but because of alignment. And let me be clear. You do not need to understand how it will happen. You are not responsible for the mechanics of miracles. You are responsible for the command. Speak it, believe nothing else, and let the law fulfill its role. This is the law of creative declaration. What I declare, I see. What I speak, I summon. What I release by word, I receive by law. The word is not symbolic. The word is the substance. The tongue is not suggestion. The tongue is the activator. And the moment your mouth aligns with spiritual law, lack has no choice but to leave. Say this aloud. I no longer describe my life, I declare it. I do not report scarcity. I command supply. My tongue is trained, my voice is law, my word is the mold, and wealth fills it now. That is not motivation. That is the first key to spiritual wealth. That is Law 1. And now we move forward. Repeat until the field bends. Do not ask why it hasn't happened. Ask how often you spoke it. Because what appears in the visible realm does not follow effort, it follows rhythm. It does not move when you cry. It moves when you command consistently. That is the second law of spoken wealth. Repetition. Most people do not have a manifestation problem. They have a rhythm problem. They speak one declaration on Monday, then undo it on Tuesday with a complaint. They affirm divine supply in the morning and then say, I'm just being realistic by night. They speak increase once, then wait for proof. But the law does not obey isolated command. The law obeys repeated decree. You are not fighting disbelief, you are dissolving contradiction. And contradiction is dismantled through repetition. Not mindless, frantic, desperate repetition, but lawful, rhythmic, exact repetition. You do not repeat because God is deaf. You repeat because the field is full of weeds, and your new word must become louder than your old ones. The law has heard you say, "I'm broke," 1,000 times. The field has been trained by your casual sighs of defeat. The invisible substance has memorized your patterns of lack, fear, and delay. And now, you must override that frequency. Not with volume, with rhythm. You must repeat your decree, not because you're begging, but because you're programming. Spiritual demonstration is not emotional. It is structural. It is vibrational. It is mechanical. You speak it, and you speak it again, and you speak it again, until the invisible bends under the weight of your consistency. And it will, because the field does not resist you. It simply reflects you. Let me speak clearly. If you have spoken more about the problem than the promise, the law has no choice but to obey the dominant vibration. If you spend more time describing delays than declaring results, you are not cursed. You are consistent with the wrong sound. The field is sound sensitive. It hears patterns, not pleas. It hears agreements, not emotion. And whatever you repeat in rhythm, it treats as command. So when you say, "I always attract struggle," even jokingly, even sarcastically, even in passing, the field says, "Understood," and rearranges accordingly. But when you begin to say, daily, deliberately, "Everything I touch increases," the field begins to shift. It may take time for the residue of old declarations to clear, but the shift has begun. And the law, once set into motion, cannot return void. This is the law of repetition. What I say consistently becomes permanent. What I impress upon the field rhythmically becomes law. This is not about loudness. This is about legal dominance. The subconscious does not obey volume. It obeys rhythm. And repetition is how spiritual law is written into your atmosphere. You must stop trying to feel your way into wealth. You must start rhythmically commanding it. Create a structure. Speak in cycles. Declare in sequence. Morning, noon, and night. Declare the same law. Say it before you feel it. Say it even when the outer looks opposite. Say it when you're tired. Say it when you're tempted to be realistic. Because what you repeat in faith will soon become what you see in form. Do not confuse silence with failure. The field does not respond instantly because it is weighing your consistency. It is observing whether this new declaration is a passing wish or a permanent signature. It is testing your rhythm, not to punish you, but to align with you. Because manifestation is not magic, it is spiritual legality, and legal orders are only enforced when they are repeated with authority. And yes, at first you will feel resistance. Your body will resist, your old mind will argue, the outer world may mock you, but you are not speaking to get approval. You are speaking to install command. This is not performance. This is prophecy. And prophets do not wait for permission to repeat what is true. They anchor it. They rehearse it. They inscribe it into the field. So write your decree, memorize it, speak it morning and night, not to convince yourself, but to command your reality. Create a rhythm the law cannot ignore. Hammer it into the unseen. Carve it into your subconscious. Say it like a ritual. Declare it like a drumbeat. I am a wealth portal. Supply flows through me without interruption. My rhythm is law. My tongue is authorized. My voice is the password. I speak and the field aligns. This is how you retrain a field that was trained by trauma. This is how you override inherited scripts. Not with a one-time affirmation, but with sovereign repetition. You say it until your mind stops flinching. You say it until your body agrees. You say it until the field echoes it back in the form of opportunities, favor, contracts, gifts, and unexpected release. And when doubt comes, and it will, you do not argue. You return to the rhythm. You say it again. You do not explain. You do not vent. You return to the word. Because the word, repeated lawfully, will override any lie. This is the law of repetition. And if you obey it, you will not need to chase wealth. You will train the field to bring it. Say this now. I no longer wait to believe. I repeat until I become. I do not explain, I decree. My rhythm is my weapon. My tongue is my anchor. My field is programmed. Wealth returns to me by law. That is not motivation. That is law too. And we do not slow down. Interrupt fear. Replace it with fire. The law does not care what you feel. It cares what you speak. And the moment you begin speaking from fear, confusion, or doubt, the law will not pause to question your intent. It will obey. Instantly, precisely, legally. This is why the third law of spoken wealth is not suggestion, it is survival. You must substitute every word of fear with a command of fire. Every time, without exception, without delay. You cannot speak both ways. You cannot declare, I am richly supplied at sunrise, then say I'm worried about the bills by lunch. The law does not weigh which one you meant more. It enforces both. The field does not know irony, it knows command. And substitution is how you break the spell of contradiction before it roots itself in your field. The law of substitution is the law of override. It is how you unhook from unconscious programs in real time. It is how you retrain the tongue to stop partnering with fear. And it is how you cleanse your atmosphere without begging or backtracking. You cancel, you replace, you command, immediately, without apology, without analysis, without emotional justification. When the old phrase rises, I can't afford that, that's too expensive, it never works for me. You do not explain it. You do not defend it. You do not allow it to pass through your lips unchallenged. You cut it midair. You interrupt the signal, and you replace it with truth. I am a channel of wealth. Everything I touch increases. Supply obeys my tone. Not because you feel it, but because it is law. And the field cannot hold both curses and blessings in the same breath. Only one can stay, and the one you speak last is the one that rules. This is why most people never break out of lack. They speak a truth once, but let fear speak 10,000 times more. They allow unconscious phrases to fill their day. They think those words are harmless, but the law is a perfect recorder. It does not forget, it does not skip, it does not excuse, and every phrase not substituted is a phrase enforced. Let me make this simple. Every time you speak against your supply and you do not correct it, you authorize delay. Every time you say, this is just how it is, and you don't override it, you seal that condition with your own voice. The problem is not the thought. The problem is the agreement. And the moment that agreement exits your mouth without challenge, it becomes your contract. But when you substitute, instantly, rhythmically, without hesitation, you tear up the old contract before it reaches the field. You cancel the legal authorization. You inject a new command. And the law, being mechanical and perfect, erases the former and installs the latter. Not because you apologized, but because you replaced. The law does not move by regret, it moves by substitution. And substitution must be trained. It must be a reflex, not a someday habit, a now discipline. A spiritual response that rises faster than fear can form a sentence. You must train your mind to catch every phrase, every sigh, every joke, every story of lack passed down through family, culture, or trauma. And when they rise, because they will, you do not panic. You do not judge yourself. You simply override. I cancel that. I replace it with truth. I command abundance now. This is not performative. This is surgical. It is the work of a disciplined soul, one who refuses to let anything unauthorized speak through them, one who understands that the mouth is a gate, not a garbage chute, one who governs their atmosphere like a sovereign, not a victim of emotion. Because there is no such thing as a harmless phrase. There is no such thing as a passing comment when you are operating under divine law. Everything spoken is seed, and every seed uncorrected will produce harvest. So start small. Catch one phrase today. Cancel it aloud. Replace it aloud. Declare truth aloud, not in your head, not as a whisper, but with spiritual authority. I cancel that. I replace it. I command what must be. This is how you purify the field, not with therapy, not with hours of analysis, but with a trained tongue, a lawful voice, a mouth that refuses to agree with fear. Say this now. I cancel every word that does not honor divine supply. I replace fear with faith. I replace doubt with decree. I replace limitation with overflow. My voice is the filter. Nothing passes into my field without permission. This is not positive thinking. This is holy interruption. And if you do not interrupt fear, fear will narrate your future. You are not here to explain your pain. You are here to revoke it. You are not here to justify your scarcity. You are here to override it. You are not here to be realistic. You are here to be lawful. Every word you fail to substitute becomes the enemy you invited. Every phrase you tolerate becomes the shape of your limitation. Every story you repeat becomes the pattern you rehearse. So stop entertaining old scripts. Stop letting outdated vocabulary govern your vibration. Stop giving nostalgia the right to narrate your now. Say it again. I cancel that. I replace it. I command what must be. This is the law of substitution. And once you train your tongue to speak nothing less than truth, the field will obey you without contradiction. That is Law 3. And we advance. You cannot bless and curse with the same tongue. This is the turning point. This is where most people lose the demonstration, not because they didn't speak, but because they spoke from two places. They declared abundance in the morning and described lack by afternoon. They said, I am provided for, while texting friends about being broke. They prayed for supply, then joked about struggle. And the field, exact and lawful, did not interpret their intention. It simply obeyed both instructions. This is the law of non-contradiction. The spiritual realm enforces what is consistent. The moment your word fractures, so does your field. Your results do not reflect your strongest declaration. They reflect your most repeated contradiction. You cannot bless and curse with the same mouth and expect the blessing to win. The field is not sentimental. It is structural. It records not what you say when you're in the zone, but what you repeat without thinking. And for most people, the dominant rhythm is not divine. It is divided. The law cannot multiply confusion. The field cannot form where there is contradiction. You speak both wealth and worry, the vibration cancels itself. You speak success, then describe how nothing ever works out for you. That is not being human. That is being legally double-minded. And the double-minded speaker receives nothing. Not because the law is cruel, but because it is pure. It cannot bring forth form from fractured instruction. Let me make this surgical. Every phrase you speak that disagrees with your divine identity, no matter how small, sarcastic, or funny, acts as a legal objection in the field. It is as if you walked into court to decree wealth, and halfway through, stood up and objected to your own statement. The universe, being the court clerk, simply records both. And since the law requires harmony, no motion is passed. So the question is not, am I speaking truth? The question is, am I speaking it without contradiction? You are not in delay because you're not spiritual enough. You are in delay because you are inconsistent. You are not cursed. You are divided. And divided speech is more dangerous than silence. The tongue is your tool of alignment. But when the tongue flips between light and shadow, between wealth and worry, between prophecy and pity, the field doesn't know which to enforce. So it enforces neither. And that state is called limbo. Not punishment, not rejection, but neutral void caused by mixed orders. How do you resolve it? You decide, from this moment forward, my mouth belongs to law. I do not indulge emotional language. I do not rehearse fear for the sake of being relatable. I do not commentate on conditions. I command what must be, and I say nothing that disqualifies my decree. This is not perfectionism. This is purity of signal. Just like a radio must be tuned precisely to receive a clear sound, your field must be tuned precisely to your word. The moment you break signal, you break rhythm. The moment you add realism to your prophecy, you unplug the power line. And the moment you say it's not working, you rewind your own harvest to zero. This is why discipline is wealth, not effort. Discipline of the mouth, precision of the tongue, obedience in tone. You do not need more affirmations. You need fewer contradictions. Silence is better than doubt. Stillness is better than contradiction. If you cannot speak in alignment, do not speak at all. That is not suppression. That is stewardship. The mouth is the gate of your field. If you would not let someone plant weeds in your garden, why allow your own tongue to do so? Every time you contradict yourself, you tear your own decree. Every time you rehearse your struggle after declaring success, you become your own adversary. And every time you speak in two tongues, one for law, one for fear, you split the channel and wonder why nothing moves. Let the contradiction end here. Say this aloud: I do not contradict my decree. I do not dilute my power. I do not curse what I just blessed. My mouth is aligned, my field is unified, my voice is singular, and the law obeys me because I am one with it. This is why the scriptures say, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. The instability is not emotional. It is vibrational. It is legal. You cannot stand on two frequencies and expect the field to choose one. The field has no will. It mirrors yours. So from now on, you do not speak both ways. You speak as one who already knows. You speak as one who already sees. You speak as one who has decided that your word is law, your decree is final, and your rhythm is sealed. When the old language rises, when the reflex to joke about money, or vent your stress, or just be honest about the facts tries to take your mouth, you remember this. Your honesty is not measured by how accurately you describe lack. Your honesty is measured by how lawfully you declare truth. What is lawful is more real than what is visible. What is spoken in alignment is more powerful than what is currently seen. And every time you choose consistency over commentary, you advance the manifestation. This is the law of non-contradiction. What you declare must be declared without dilution. What you speak must be unbroken. What you affirm must not be followed by fear, commentary, or apology. Because every time you apologize for your power, you authorize your delay. Say it again. I will not contradict my field. I will not revoke my decree. I will not water my own seed with poison. I speak one way, and that way is truth. That is law 4. And now we rise again. Name it right, or lose it. Every object you see, every relationship you experience, every sum of money, task, title, desire has a name. And what you name it, it becomes. Not because the thing itself has will, but because the law obeys identity. This is the law of divine naming. And most people do not struggle with supply, they struggle because they mislabeled it. You keep calling it just a job and it refuses to multiply. You call it barely enough and it never becomes overflow. You name your relationship complicated and it bends itself to that definition. You call your rent stressful and the field writes it down in permanent ink. Not because life hates you, but because you are speaking contracts, and contracts begin with a name. Naming is spiritual authorship. To name is to claim dominion. When Adam named the animals, it was not poetry, it was legislation. He gave form to function. He declared the essence of a thing with his word. And in that moment, the invisible obeyed. You are doing the same thing every day, except you are doing it carelessly, casually, emotionally. You call your project impossible. You call your clients annoying. You call your city expensive. And then wonder why the field multiplies frustration and limitation around the very things you desire to bless. The field is not cruel. It is obedient. It receives your vocabulary as law. Your power is not in how you describe the world. Your power is in how you name it, because naming seals identity, and the law cannot deliver what you refuse to dignify with a divine name. If you keep calling wealth hard to find, it will never show up. If you keep calling your business just getting by, it will never grow. If you keep calling your gift not enough, you will never be asked to carry more. The law has no reason to expand what you keep dishonoring by name. This is not mindset. This is legal jurisdiction. The word you use to define something becomes its spiritual assignment. And that assignment will report back to you again and again until you rename it. So ask yourself now, what have you been naming in defeat? What gifts have you dismissed with a sarcastic tone? What parts of your life have you cursed without knowing, just by calling them difficult, draining, or not for me? If you want a harvest, you must name the seed correctly. If you want wealth, you must stop calling it a struggle. If you want peace, you must stop labeling your days chaotic. Because what you call it, it becomes. And once a name is spoken, the law will not override it until you revoke it. This is why Florence said, never voice lack or limitation. Not because she was avoiding reality, but because she knew that every name spoken becomes a magnetic signature. You name something small, and the law makes it smaller. You name something divine, and the law exalts it. Your voice is not commentary, it is classification. And classification is creation. When you look at your bank account and say not enough, you are not stating a fact, you are issuing a title. And the field will say, as you named it, so it is. When you call your ideas too late, your energy burnt out, your dreams maybe someday, you've already assigned failure before a door even had a chance to open. But when you rename the condition, when you say this is sacred work, this is an overflow portal, this account is a magnet for divine deposit, you have legally reclassified your reality. And the law must adjust accordingly. This is how you uproot limitation without needing to explain it. You simply rename the moment. You look at the mess and say, this is a miracle in motion. You look at the delay and say, this is divine setup. You look at the contract that hasn't come and say, this is already mine. Not because you're in denial, but do not call anything lost. Do not call anything over. Do not call anything too hard, too late, too little, or too far gone. That is not realism. That is spiritual sabotage. And if you keep naming from emotion, you will keep authoring cycles you don't want to live in. Instead, declare it again. I name this season increase. I name this work divine. I name this process perfect. I name my gift unstoppable. I name my supply inevitable. I name what I want, and I do not rename it in fear. And if fear tries to rename it, you cancel it immediately. You do not allow dual titles. You do not allow downgrade labels. You do not call something divine one day and dismiss it the next, because the law is listening, and it records your labels, and the field responds not to your feelings, but to your final declaration. So choose your titles wisely. Speak only what you want to see. Refer to nothing by the vocabulary of defeat. And when you are tempted to use the names passed down from culture, trauma, or fatigue, you stop and you rename it. You rename it until it bends. You rename it until it shifts. You rename it until your atmosphere speaks back with evidence. Say this aloud. I name my day prosperous. I name my work powerful. I name my supply holy. I name my seed multiplied. I name my body whole. I name my future rich. I name what I want, and the law fulfills it. This is not affirmation. This is authorship. That is Law 5. And now we command even more. You've spoken the words. You've repeated the declarations. But the law is not listening to your sentences. It's listening to your tone. And until your tone matches your truth, nothing moves. You see, the law does not obey grammar. It does not scan for vocabulary. It responds to frequency. And frequency is carried not in the syllables of your speech, but in the spirit of your tone. This is the 6th law, the law of embodied tone. It is the invisible verdict that either empowers or disables everything you say. Most people don't realize this, but spiritual law is vibrationally legal. That means tone is the courtroom evidence of belief. It is the audible proof of internal alignment. You can say, I am richly supplied, with the voice of a beggar, and the law will not recognize it. You can declare, money comes to me easily, while your voice trembles with doubt, and the field will not respond, because the tone betrays the truth. The vibration you carry is louder than the words you use, and the law cannot be deceived by borrowed phrases or scripted affirmations. It only moves when the command comes from embodiment, not imitation. Embodied tone is not loud. It is not theatrical. It is not positive for the sake of performance. It is the still, sovereign resonance of someone who already holds what they speak. Someone who does not request wealth, they administrate it. Someone who does not wish, they issue. Someone who does not look around for evidence, they declare, as if the evidence is already complete. And that tone, that frequency of fulfillment, is what the law records and obeys. Because in the realm of spiritual law, sound is permission, and tone is the legal seal. Let me tell you plainly, you are not waiting for wealth, you are waiting for your voice to become believable in the spirit. You are waiting for your declaration to come from identity, not from rehearsal. You are not here to chant empty lines, you are here to release frequency. And frequency is not faked. It is formed through agreement. When your inner state has become one with your spoken truth, tone emerges. When your nervous system no longer flinches as you say, I am financially untouchable, you are approaching tone. When your mouth says, I expect divine compensation daily, and your body feels no contradiction, you are embodying tone. And that is the sound that changes the field. This is why some people recite hundreds of affirmations and see nothing shift, because they say the right words in the wrong tone. Their vibration leaks uncertainty, apology, fatigue. They don't realize that in the spiritual economy, tone is everything. You cannot whisper prosperity while your body echoes fear. You cannot declare increase while your soul is rehearsing evidence of decrease. The law is exact. It multiplies your signal, not your intention. And if your signal is split, your return is scattered. So I ask you now, what does your tone say when you speak? Not the phrase, not the surface. The tone. Does it speak from command or request, from ownership or lack, from inheritance or hustle? Because tone is the courtroom testimony of your spiritual identity. And the moment your tone shifts from effort to authority, the field reclassifies you. You are no longer heard as a seeker. You are registered as a sovereign. You are no longer marked by delay. You are qualified by vibration. Let me show you the shift. When you say, wealth flows to me, but you say it with strain, with weariness, with a hoping for once to be true energy, that is not embodiment, that is petition. But when you say, wealth flows to me, and your tone is still grounded, inevitable, now the law responds. Why? Because you've stopped speaking from the wound and started speaking from the throne. You've stopped reaching for truth and started ruling with it. This is why I tell you to read your declarations out loud, but not like a student trying to memorize a script. Read them like the lawmaker you are. Declare them with the vocal posture of someone who has already won the case, because that's what you are doing. You are speaking not for comfort, but for confirmation in the field. You are not trying to feel better. You are recording a frequency into the ethers that must return to you fulfilled. And the only thing that gives your words legal jurisdiction is tone. You say, I am divinely supported, and you say it slowly, with still breath, with inner quiet, with deep agreement. That is tone. You say every need is met before I ask, and you don't look around for proof. You speak as proof. That is tone. You say my provision is inevitable, and you don't rush it, don't perform it, don't strain to believe it. You release it with the same voice you use to state your name. That is tone. And that is when the law moves. You must retrain your voice, not just your words, your voice. The energy behind it, the steadiness within it. The divine boredom of one who is not surprised by wealth. The calm clarity of one who has spoken and expects it to be done. Because until you sound like you already have it, the field hears contradiction. The law does not obey optimism. It obeys resonance. It does not require you to shout, but it does require you to stop sounding like a stranger to your own decree. Let your tone become familiar with your wealth. Let your voice carry the rhythm of completion. Let your speech lose the need to perform, persuade, or please. Speak as one who already has. Speak with the mouth of the fulfilled. Because once your voice carries ownership, your reality cannot delay fulfillment. The signal will be clean, the vibration will be sealed, and the law, ever faithful, will obey. Not your effort, not your mind, but the sound of your embodiment. Now write this where you will see it daily. My words are not requests. My tone is not rehearsal. I speak as one who already has, and the law must deliver. This is the sixth law, and once it is obeyed, your tone becomes your trademark in the unseen. Speak accordingly. You were not born to describe your conditions. You were not designed to echo what already exists. You are not here to report the weather of your finances. You are here to call forth the storm, command the stillness, and shape the climate by decree. This is the law of prophetic speech, the seventh law of spoken wealth, and it is not a metaphor. It is the legal mechanism by which the unseen becomes inevitable. It is how the soul of divine order governs time, collapses waiting, and commands substance to appear. Prophetic speech is not prediction. It is not educated guesswork. It is not a hopeful imagination disguised as divine insight. It is not your intuition nervously dressed up as authority. Prophetic speech is the act of speaking with dominion over that which has not yet appeared, knowing that the vibration of fulfillment moves faster than evidence. It is the way of the sovereign. It is the sound of the spirit that refuses to wait for conditions to shift before uttering what must become. It is the voice that says, "This is what will be," not because you wish it, but because the law must obey your word when spoken in truth. This law separates the speaker from the reporter, the builder from the reactor, the spiritual master from the vibrational slave. Those who speak prophetically understand that speech is not a reflection of reality. It is the script that precedes it. They do not look to their bank balance for permission to speak abundance. They do not consult circumstance before opening their mouths. They understand that the moment they open their mouths in the rhythm of law, they are legislating a future that must appear. They understand that to speak before it comes is not delusion, it is divine procedure. The world has trained you to wait. It has conditioned you to speak only after something becomes visible. But spiritual law does not reward reporters. It honors rulers. It does not multiply facts. It fulfills frequencies. And frequency is always ahead of form. You are not taught this because the system prefers you to be afraid of your own voice. It prefers you to wait for signs, for approvals, for testimonials, for slow results. But prophetic speech does not wait. It commands. It speaks without apology. It names what must appear and then proceeds as if it already has. That is not arrogance. That is alignment. When I say speak prophetically, I do not mean speak dramatically. I do not mean speak theatrically, or emotionally, or religiously. I mean speak lawfully. Speak from vibration, not panic. Speak from position, not hope. Speak from seated authority, not performance. This kind of speech is not to impress anyone. It is to instruct the invisible. And when the invisible hears the correct tone, it moves. When the field is addressed by the one who carries rhythm, the gates open. Let me tell you plainly, prophetic speech is not about speaking what feels good. It's about declaring what is true in the unseen and letting that truth override everything that currently appears to contradict it. This means you will often be speaking in complete defiance of visible facts. And that is exactly the point. The law was never made to obey facts. It was made to fulfill truth. And truth is not circumstantial. It is eternal. It is the spiritual order that governs appearance. And when you speak in line with it, everything else must bow. Here's the test. When your bills show up and your income hasn't, what do you say? Do you describe the gap? Or do you speak to the supply that is already en route? Do you rehearse what's missing? Or do you declare what's already fulfilled in the realm of spirit? When the invoice is unpaid and the client disappears, do you say, "This always happens to me"? Or do you say, "Better supply is already being arranged on my behalf"? Because in that moment, your speech is forming contracts. And the law is listening, not for your feelings, but for your authority. You must retrain your spiritual reflex. You must become immune to panic and fluent in prophecy. You must learn how to open your mouth as if you are speaking to angels who are already in motion, not to convince them, but to instruct them. When your voice matches the rhythm of truth, they move faster than your fear. Because they are not obeying your personality, they are responding to law. And law, once spoken, is final. Understand this. Every time you speak, you are building a structure in the unseen. You are assigning instruction to the field. You are either reinforcing delay or collapsing it. And the only difference is this. Did you speak as a beggar, or did you speak as one who carries legal command? Did you speak from alignment, or did you echo contradiction? Prophetic speech is what turns vibration into evidence. It is what makes tomorrow serve today. It is what shortens the distance between what you know and what you see. It is not noise, it is blueprint. And when you speak like a blueprint, matter cannot resist. When you speak as if you already know the ending, conditions begin to rearrange to catch up with your voice. You are not here to recite scripture as comfort. You are here to speak scripture as command. You are not here to wait for signs. You are here to be the sign. You are not here to hope that provision arrives. You are here to speak as if it never left. That is prophetic law. That is wealth spoken into visibility. Now say this with the full tone of embodiment. I do not wait to see before I speak. I speak, and the unseen moves. I declare not what is, I declare what must be. My voice forms the conditions that serve me. My decree is not suggestion, it is law. And so now I give you this practice. Before you open your mouth, ask yourself, am I describing or am I declaring? Am I repeating a condition or am I installing a command? Am I reacting to what appears or am I speaking what I know is mine by spiritual right? Let your answer decide whether you speak. And once you speak, let it be final. This is the seventh law, and when it is obeyed, time bends, delay dissolves, and the future cannot help but deliver what you've already spoken. There is a secret hidden inside every act of giving. It is not the size of the gift. It is not the motive of the heart. It is not even the emotion that surrounds it. It is the word that goes with it. Without a spoken word, your gift is naked. Without declaration, your tithe is silent. Without sealing, your seed goes unrecognized in the court of law. And law does not respond to charity. Law responds to command. This is the law of sealed giving. Every gift must be spoken over to activate its return. Every transfer of money must carry a voice. Every seed must be named, blessed, and sent out with a decree. Because the law cannot return what has not been assigned. It cannot multiply what has not been commanded. It cannot locate a harvest that was never given an instruction. You have been taught to give quietly. You have been conditioned to think that spiritual giving is most pure when it is silent. But silence is not reverence when it comes to law. It is omission. You are not in a moral system, you are in a vibrational one. And vibration moves not by sentiment, but by rhythm, tone, and command. That is why Florence taught not only the power of tithe, but the necessity of declaration. To give without speaking is to plant without watering. To donate without decree is to sow into the void. Giving is not a transaction, it is an instruction. When you give and say nothing, the seed obeys your silence. It waits for further command. It drifts, but when you give and speak, the field receives exact coordinates. The law of return is now engaged. The seed now carries a vibration that matches your word. And when your word is sealed in faith and rhythm, that seed cannot return void. You must train yourself to never give passively again. Never tap send on a donation, a tithe, an offering, a tip, without sealing it with a word. Never hand money to someone without releasing a decree over that exchange. The world sees it as kindness. The law sees it as coding. The moment your voice blesses that seed, the law begins to build your return. And that return is not decided by emotion. It is decided by the clarity, consistency, and authority of your decree. This is why some people give and give and give and nothing changes. Because the law is not sentimental. It is lawful. It is vibrational. And when you give in fear or in pressure or in habit, without voice, without command, without rhythm, it has no coordinates. But the moment you stop giving like the world taught you and start giving like the spiritual commander you are, everything changes. You say, this is not just $10. This is divine seed. This is law in motion. This is the vibration of my wealth encoded into form. You say, this gift is blessed. It returns to me multiplied. It opens divine doors no man can shut. You say, even my smallest seed carries infinite power because I speak over it. And the field says, so be it. You're not trying to bribe God. You're not trying to perform for the universe. You are not paying for miracles. You are commanding the unseen through the protocol of divine order. Giving is holy. Giving is rhythm. Giving is multiplication, but only when sealed in sound. The voice is what consecrates the gift. The word is what identifies the assignment. The tone is what makes the seed magnetic. And here is the part no one told you. You do not need to wait until you feel generous. You do not need to wait until your cup overflows. You do not need to wait until you are inspired or emotional or deeply moved, because giving is not about feeling, it is about frequency. And the law responds to that frequency, not your mood, not your personality, not your nobility, just the vibration. Some of the greatest wealth ever summoned came from small gifts, spoken over, blessed, sealed in word, and sent with authority. That dollar that left your hand was not small. It was law made visible. It was rhythm made manifest. It was the language of wealth leaving you only to multiply its return. But only if you gave it with speech. If your seed has been neglected, do not cry over the harvest. If your giving has been wordless, do not resent the delay. This is not punishment, it is simple law. But the moment you begin to speak over what leaves your hand, the field begins to build the bridge for its return. This is what Florence meant when she said, your words are your wand. Not your emotions, not your best intentions, not your long explanations to the heavens. Just your words, your spiritual decree, your vibrational assignment. That is what makes money return. That is what makes provision become personal. That is what makes the seed obey not the world, but your command. So from this day forward, you will not give in silence. You will not transfer funds without rhythm. You will not tip a server without blessing the seed. You will not give to the poor without speaking supply into your own field. Because every gift now carries a return. Every seed now carries an instruction. Every act of generosity now becomes a legal exchange in the court of law. And law cannot disobey what is sealed. You are not obligated to give out of guilt. You are not pressured to give by culture or religion. You are not trying to earn favor with God or man. You are simply choosing to participate in the economy of the kingdom, and that economy is coded through sound. Say it. My giving is not passive. It is power. It is rhythm. It is multiplication in motion, and the law has no choice but to obey my voice. Say it again. I tithe with word. I give with decree. I sow with clarity, and I receive with certainty. Let this become your rhythm. Before the money leaves your hand, your voice must precede it. Before the seed is planted, the vibration must seal it. Before the harvest returns, your word must have gone ahead of it. That is not superstition. That is divine sequence. So now I ask you, how many times have you given without sealing? How many seeds have you sown into silence? How many financial offerings have you made that carried no decree, no rhythm, no voice? You don't need to feel shame, but you do need to shift. Because the moment you begin speaking over your giving begins speaking back. This is the law of sealed giving, and once it is obeyed, every seed becomes sacred, every offering becomes coded, every act of generosity becomes a signal to the field, and the return is not delayed. It is built by vibration, built by speech, built by the fire of faith that now goes with every dollar you release. Say it one last time. Every seed I give is sealed in speech. Every dollar I send is blessed by word, and every act of giving returns to me multiplied by law. And so it is. Every word you've ever spoken is still alive. Every declaration, every complaint, every whispered hope, every casual phrase tossed in frustration, all of it still moving, still forming, still obeying the frequency that gave it birth. The universe does not forget what you say. It does not dismiss what you release. It is built to obey, built to record, built to return. This is the law of return, and it is not optional. There is no such thing as a word wasted. There is no such thing as a neutral tongue. The law does not respond only to your sacred affirmations, your declared decrees, your rehearsed proclamations in front of the mirror. It responds to all of it. The sigh you breathed when you saw the bill, the phrase you muttered under your breath when the client canceled, the complaint you repeated to your friend just to feel understood, the "I'm just being realistic" joke you used to explain your lack. The law recorded them all, because the law doesn't filter by intention, it filters by frequency. It multiplies vibration, not sentiment. This is why the law of return is not poetic, it is absolute. What you speak comes back. What you declare returns. What you repeat becomes form. It does not matter whether you meant it or not. It matters whether you vibrated it with rhythm. And once you did, the universe marked it as an instruction, not a question, not a suggestion, a command. If you say, "Money never sticks around," the law does not ask if you're exaggerating. It says, "So be it." If you say, "I can't get ahead no matter what I do," the law does not ask about your effort. It says, "So be it." If you say, "I guess I'm just not lucky like other people," the law does not wait for clarification. It builds that script into the very conditions you call life. The law of return is the most faithful force in the universe. It never delays. It never forgets. It never rebels. It simply multiplies what it receives, and it receives your voice on loop. That is why your life is not a mystery. It is a mirror. It is the boomerang effect of your dominant declarations. But here's the power that turns everything. If your past words have built limitation, your present word can build liberty. If your tongue has rehearsed fear, it can now begin to rehearse truth. If your field has been seeded with lack, you can now overseed it with wealth. Word by word, rhythm by rhythm, tone by tone. The moment your declarations change, the return begins to reroute. Florence said it with holy clarity. You cannot release the spoken word and expect nothing to return. And she was right, because every word is a seed, and every seed contains the code of return. You don't just speak and hope something happens. You speak and something must. It must respond. It must move. It must gather evidence to support the tone of your decree. This is why repetition matters. Why rhythm is law. Why frequency is the access point of spiritual transaction. Because the universe is not personal, it is lawful. And that law responds to your rhythm, not your righteousness. It responds to your tone, not your theology. It responds to what you say most often, not what you wish were true. So ask yourself, what has your voice been teaching the field to return? Have you spoken increase or delay? Have you named yourself supplied or disqualified? Have you described your current state or declared the end from the beginning? You cannot afford to be casual with your mouth. You cannot afford to echo old lack just because it sounds familiar. You cannot afford to let sarcasm, social scripting, or generational poverty language wrap themselves around your decree. Because the law is always listening, always building, always returning. This is not a threat. This is your liberation. Because the law of return works just as fast in your favor. The moment your tongue is reprogrammed, your field begins to adjust. The moment you declare truth, daily, rhythmically, legally, the old harvest begins to wither and the new one begins to sprout. You don't need the whole world to agree. You don't need the bank to catch up. You just need to seal the new word in your mouth until the field can no longer ignore it. Say now, I am not rehearsing delay. I am commanding return. I am not reacting to the world. I am reprogramming it. Say, what I speak returns to me in multiplied form. My words are wealth in motion. My frequency is a magnet for divine substance. And so it is. Because now, every word is issued with intention. Every phrase is a legal decree. Every spoken line is encoded with instruction. And law does not ask permission to fulfill it. It simply obeys. From this day forward, let your words be your tithe. Let your declarations be your seed. Let your sound be your strategy. Let your tone be your legal claim. Because when you speak like a vessel of divine order, the field must arrange itself around your vibration. Not because you are lucky, not because you are smart, not because you are good, but because you obeyed. Say it again. My words are seeds. My words are code. My words are law. What I speak returns to me fulfilled. Let that be the vibration you wake into, the decree you seal your night with, the rhythm you carry in every conversation. Because you are not a victim of delay. You are not an accident of economy. You are not waiting for someone else's yes. You are the yes. You are the gate. You are the rhythm that reshapes reality. And now that you know the law of return, you are no longer allowed to speak with contradiction. You are no longer permitted to sabotage your harvest with old scripts. You are no longer available for language that does not reflect the wealth you carry. You speak with precision now. You speak as law now. You speak as the voice that commands matter, not the echo that reacts to appearance. The return is guaranteed, not because you earned it, but because law was built to respond. It is not a gamble. It is not a maybe. It is sealed. Because once the word is spoken in faith, with rhythm, under law, its return is inevitable. Now declare this. Every word I release is a magnet. Every sound I utter is a seed. Every decree I make is a contract with divine law. And the return is not delayed, it is activated now. And say it again until your bones believe it. Because I speak under law, my wealth cannot disobey me. And so it is.